Your ego wants you to believe you're being dramatic, and you're not. This is a big deal. Like, think of when someone goes from being an adolescent to an adult and going through puberty. What happens? A lot of those symptoms are the same as what you experience during a timeline jump. And the bigger the jump, the more potent and intense those symptoms are. Your body feels lighter on the other side, like a layer got removed. Like I said, you even look lighter, like the inflammation is gone. Like you're like, oh my God, I look like I gained or I lost 10 pounds. You even can look younger. The sleep that you need is really, really potent, but it's different. And when you do sleep, it's actually deep and you feel more rested on the other side of it. You start waking up with a more clear mind instead of dread and obsessive thoughts. You have a confidence. And I don't mean like I can do anything in the world. It's more of it's a grounded sense of knowing that I've got this, but you can't really explain it. And it's like nothing you've ever really felt before, and certainly not where it was sustained, meaning day after day after day. There's a part of a timeline jump that no one prepares you for, the aftermath. When the dust settles and suddenly you're left alone with yourself. That big launch type feeling is over, the chaos is over, the adrenaline of the insanity is gone. And there's this strange, almost hollow quiet where your old identity used to live, this gaping hole. You look around and realize you don't fit into the old version of your life anymore, but you haven't fully stepped into the new one yet either. This is the in between. The place where rest feels foreign, where you're exhausted but wired, and there's an excitement more than there is anxiety, but the anxiety is so familiar that you mistake it for that, where your mind wants to search for problems just so it has something to fight. This episode is about what happens after the breakthrough moment, after the timeline jump, when you're integrating the new identity you just burst into. Because the truth is, the biggest timeline jumps don't happen in the moment of collapse, they happen in the quiet that comes after. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? It's your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is the show that is going to help you grow your business, your bank account, that big, beautiful brain of yours, your abundance, your relationships, and everything in between. This is part two of my story from breakdown to breakthrough, the story behind the biggest timeline jump I've ever had in my life. That was about 11 years ago. If you've not listened to part one, it's the episode behind this. And you don't have to listen to it in order. Perhaps you landed on this one first for a reason. This is the aftermath. This is after the jump has occurred. This is when things start changing and you're walking into a new land. You're exiting a plane in a foreign country that you've really not studied anything about. You don't know anyone who's been there. You don't know the language. They don't know yours. And everything feels so different. Everything looks so different. Everything sounds so different. And you kind of feel like you're in a weird tunnel. You even feel like maybe you've taken some psychedelics. And I mean, I perhaps have taken some in my day, so I know what that feels like. But it's a strange experience. But the difference between, and I'm going to share because I listed here, if you're watching here on Project Me TV on YouTube, what's up? Subscribe, say hi, comment. I have listed out in my notes here, I've been gathering all of the signs and symptoms that I felt both physically and mentally when on the other side of the timeline jump, because the period can be a little confusing because you know that you're not in that chaos anymore. You don't feel that relentless heaviness. You don't feel like you are pinned up against a corner and you feel like you're in a vice and you're being strangled and the intensity is there and you have this anxiety that's like pumping through your body. That's gone, but it also isn't like Shangri-La. All of a sudden, like everything has changed, but yet it also has. It does feel a lot lighter, but because it feels different and because you've gone through so much, I mean, in the case of my story, which is what I'm sharing with you in this two-part episode, is for you to be able to feel less alone in it, for you to be able to identify yourself in parts of it. But just know everyone's experience does look a little bit different. There are similarities, and in coaching well over 150,000 people worldwide, and so many people who have gone through a timeline jump and were in different phases of it. I can recognize it. There's a lot of commonalities, and I've been sharing a lot of those over on Instagram and TikTok at Project Me with Tiffany. So I think you'll find those really helpful. But it's a different kind of a what the fuck is going on because you like it, but because of almost even the PTSD feeling of going through the timeline jump, of morphing, of shedding your old identity, of your cells literally reconfiguring and being primed and redesigned into that new identity. Think about how much effort that is on your body energetically, physically, mentally, what that does to you spiritually. And because when you're having a really big one, it's all the shit is so relentless. The pain, the hits, the disappointment, what is going on, the physical symptoms. It makes it really hard to trust when you've now had the quantum leap and you're just on that other side and things do feel easier. You can actually take a deep breath and feel it. You feel like there's almost strings pulling you up. You even can feel taller. You actually even look different. And that shit's real, man. The shape shifting is no joke. The inflammation is leaving your body and your brain becomes even clearer, but it's hard to trust it when you've been battered around, when you've gone through what really feels like a battle. And it's not because the universe, God has put you through this a battle per se. You know what the battle is? The battle is our resistance to all of it. The battle is, I don't know what's going on. I don't like this. I don't want this to happen. It's like our ego wanting to stay in that old identity and things to stay the same, but we really don't want them to stay the same in this fight and this tug of war that is going on with us trying to hold on to our old identity where spirit, where source is saying, no, it's time. You need to be pulled. You're expanding. You've asked for this. You've been manifesting this. And in order for you to have these manifestations that you've put out there and what you're called to do and this divine path that has been laid out, that's already, you're not in control, sweetie. Like this has already been laid out in your lifetime. You have to expand and morph into this version. But we fight it. And the more we fight it, the more pain we cause, the more exhaustion we cause. A lot of the symptoms that we don't like come out of that fight. And listen, it goes on even longer when you're fighting it. I mean, the whole thing that I went through 11 years ago, I really feel it's fair to say it was a 2 year solid battle, and it didn't have to go on that long. But I didn't know how to surrender. I just felt like I was surviving. I was not in a space because I'd never experienced anything that potent, that remarkable, that wild. And I didn't have anyone around me who could help navigate it, which is what prompted me to share these two episodes, even though it's really vulnerable for me, because even in my head while I'm talking to you right now, I'm getting stuff coming into my mind of, oh, they're gonna really think you're crazy. Like this sounds like true wild shit. They're gonna be like, Tiff has been doing a lot of mushrooms. Like she doesn't know what she doesn't know what she's talking about anymore. That, oh, she's really gone a wackadoodly do. And that is source and not higher source. It's like a lower source, a shadow source trying to get me to shut up, trying to actually not do what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm doing my best to not have to fight against that, but to continue talking because everything in me wants to stop recording this episode. And I know that this episode is needed. So please let me know as you're listening to this by taking a screenshot, sharing this on social media, and tagging me at Project Me with Tiffany. leave a written review of the show on Apple Podcasts. It's the only place you can leave a full written review so far, but you can tap the 5 stars on Spotify if you're a Spotify listener and leave a comment on the episode. And of course, go subscribe over on Project Me TV on YouTube and comment along as you're watching here. So that loneliness that comes in when you're on the other side, you've had the quantum leap, is just as potent as the loneliness as you're in when you're going through this timeline jump. It's just a different kind of loneliness. When you're going through the timeline jump, it's isolation. I don't want to be around people. I'm feeling like the shittiest version of myself. I'm even scared of people. Like everything is a mess. Like I'm not my best self. I don't want to burden people. It all goes in that setting. Like I don't feel I have anyone to talk to about this. And then on the other side, it's I've never experienced this before. I don't even really know how to put this into words. I don't even know how to put this into thoughts. So how could I even talk to anyone about this? And I haven't even fully processed this. So first I want to say this is allow yourself time to integrate. I'm integrating right now in real time of another timeline jump, but I wasn't at a space where I've gone completely through it, where it would have made sense to record an episode on it. It was more important for me to show you and your ego the receipts of my biggest one of my lifetime from 11 years ago. Quite frankly, the one I'm just on the other side of now could even trump that. But since I'm not through it, I can't put words fully to it. And I want you to hear but the symptoms I'm experiencing are potent. And so the timing is not lost on me. And they are exactly the same as what I felt 11 years ago. And so physically, the amount of sleep, like I took a nap, even though the time changed in LA, so we actually gained an hour. I slept probably 12 hours last night. I needed it. And even when I woke up, and I was super crazy thirsty and dehydrated, by the way. But I know that's also because I've slept for so long. But it's like I can't get enough water. My cells need more support. My brain needs more support right now as it's integrating. But I had to take a nap before I did this, and I didn't have a choice. It was like, I shouldn't say that. I could have like pounded caffeine and done something unhealthy in order to have pushed through, but I knew not to do that. And I actually couldn't even get myself to do that. You want to know why? Because that's part of the old Tiffany. That's part of the old identity. That's some leftovers in there that I would have done. And I'm trying to find my notes right now. Here they are. I was like, where are these notes? So you can feel a strange calm that makes no logical sense. It doesn't make sense because the craziness going on in the world, you can even have a lot of plates spinning in your life. You could even be having something really rough going on, but you have this strange calm feeling, and it feels strange because it's foreign to you because you've come off a period of being battered and bruised. And it can sound dramatic what I'm saying, but it's not dramatic. Your ego wants you to believe you're being dramatic, and you're not. This is a big deal. Like think of when someone goes from being an adolescent to an adult and going through puberty, what happens? A lot of those symptoms are the same as what you experience during a timeline jump. And the bigger the jump, the more potent and intense those symptoms are. Your body feels lighter on the other side, like a layer got removed. Like I said, you even look lighter, like the inflammation is gone. Like you're like, oh my God, I look like I gained or I lost 10 pounds. You even can look younger. The sleep that you need is really, really potent, but it's different. And when you do sleep, it's actually deep and you feel more rested on the other side of it. You start waking up with a more clear mind instead of dread and obsessive thoughts. You have a confidence. And I don't mean like I can do anything in the world. It's more of a like, it's a grounded sense of knowing that I've got this, but you can't really explain it. And it's like nothing you've ever really felt before, and certainly not where it was sustained, meaning day after day after day. Your energy feels cleaner, like you dropped a weight, like a big ass, like hiking backpack that you knew you were carrying it, but you didn't know it was that heavy. And there's this new sense of like an easy does it that replaces urgency instead of that like frantic, I've got to do this and I have to do this and this has to happen and I should have done this. And it's like, it'll get done. I do need to do this, this, and this today, but it's going to happen. It'll get done. You feel more in your body than your mind. I think that for me is the weirdest feeling as someone who's an overthinker, overanalyzer. I always want to figure it out. That's a trauma response of mine, a stress response of mine, thinking my way out of something. And it's also a way to avoid being in the body, which can be so vulnerable for so many of us, especially if you are a physical and or sexual trauma abuse survivor like myself, where the body keeps score. The body has the answers. The body is where our higher self really can get through to us. We think it's our mind. It's not. It's the body, it's the core, it's all of those receptors, it's the fascia, it's where all of that comes through. And you feel like you are in your body, which is what's giving you that grounded feeling, but not a weighed down feeling, more of a centered, rooted type feeling. And then when things do pop up, like someone says something that irritates you, or you get an unexpected bill, or someone is a no-show for a sales call, or you put out a video that you think is going to do really well. You think it's a masterpiece. It's so deep and you've poured your heart out because you're in this space and you really want to communicate and transmit this to other people. And like no one watches it. And instead of having the reaction maybe like you had before, there isn't a charge there anymore. You're not being so reactive to every little thing. And that all of that, it's beautiful, but you have to remember because it is so opposite of how you've been feeling literally day after day after day, that lightness can feel daunting. We cannot trust it. It's like you're almost waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that is exactly what happened to me when things lifted. And it wasn't like, oh, I know this is a timeline jump. I hadn't even heard of a timeline jump 11 years ago, even though, keep in mind, longtime student of manifestation, law of attraction, practicing it, teaching it, had a private law of attraction. I called him my guru, like out of respect, Tony Jabor, and for 8 years, and I had never heard of a timeline jump. I just don't think like those quantum type teachings were worded in the same way, or maybe there was maybe I couldn't hear it. Maybe I was taught it. And my guess is there's certain things that I've even heard other people share, maybe some things you hear me share, maybe even in this episode, where it seems so far-fetched and so bizarre that you just kind of like don't remember it or you gloss over it. And I could have seen the old Tiffany doing that Tiffany from 11 years ago, because I would have been like, okay, like I bought into the whole manifestation thing, but to go that level of deep, that we actually do experience timeline jumps. We do actually morph into a new person when we're doing this work, when we're awake and we continue to show up for ourselves in action. And that makes so much sense to me now, but I wouldn't have been able to probably have held on to something that that strong before. It would have felt probably even scary to me, like witchery and not in a good way. So I didn't have language to put to it, which made it harder again, which is why I'm sharing all of this. But I will tell you that things started to shift and I felt them. things started to work out. I finally got in front of the right doctor. And if you haven't listened to part one, you got to make sure you listen to it because I got sent to so many different doctors and got put on Adderall and craziness. And I got matched out of the blue from a Pilates instructor of mine where she hadn't even seen me. I was a disaster. And I was sharing my symptoms and she knew, she was like, I know what this is. She's like, obviously I'm not a doctor, but I intuitively know. And she sent me to her doctor. And I was, I was skeptical because I'd been sent to so many different people. And I don't remember if I shared any of this part in the part one. I doubt I did. But I remember, oh, I'm getting emotional. I was so fucking stubborn. I mean, that was several Tiffany's ago, okay? And I'm still a stubborn ass, but not to that level. I was so had to do it myself kind of a vibe. And I was so embarrassed with how sick I was and how much of a mess I was. And I didn't want to have to like even have the energy of having to ask someone to drive me to the doctor. Because, I don't have, and not to say family is healthy, but like I didn't have family to ask. I didn't have that. I didn't have a husband to ask. I was newly dating Mike at the time. And he would have taken me, don't get me wrong, but that's not really a cute look when you're new and dating someone and you're like, I'm sickly. Like take off work. And he lived about 45 miles away from where I was living. So it was like, what, I'm gonna have him like take off work and drive me. Like it just didn't, it felt like more work to me to ask for help at that time. And I couldn't handle any of it. So I drove myself. There was not Uber 11 years ago, which sounds really weird because it seems like Uber's been around forever. Um, I'm in LA. I could have gotten a taxi. Didn't cross my mind because I was not thinking properly. When you're in that, your brain is robbed. And I remember going in to this doctor's office and he comes in and I feel like I had to get labs before I went in. So he already had my lab work or I already had labs and I sent them in ahead of time. I emailed them in. And they took my blood pressure. He sat there, he looked at me, did some like reflex tests on me. And he goes, "How did you get here?" And I said, "I drove here." And he goes, "I don't even know how you're standing. I don't know how you're not in the hospital. You literally are producing such little cortisol. I have to prescribe you rescue cortisol. And I don't know if we're comfortable letting you even drive home." It was so validating that there was something wrong with me. I wasn't just imagining it. Like my body was so depleted. And that level of physical illness can go with the timeline jump. I had to be that sick and that broken down in order for me to break through because God and the universe knew I would have gone back to that old identity because I was so attached to it because that's the survivor, Tiffany. That is what saved my motherfucking life since I was in middle school. That saved my life. That Tiffany, and we love her. We love that Tiffany. But at a certain point, you can't keep operating on that grit and that intense survival. You can't, your body can't handle that. There's no lightness in that, and ease in that, and delight in that. You can't get to that beautiful next level of abundance while operating things so rigidly. But I didn't know that. I didn't know any other way. And so it had to happen this way. And I will tell you, within 12 hours of giving my system and my nervous system, my hormonal system, the cortisol it was depleted from, I was a different person. It wasn't like all my energy was back, but like I came back online. It was like someone used the paddles on me and I was back in the game. And then to have this doctor who's by the way had for about I won't go in all the reasons, but like for multiple reasons, they had to move to another state. So the timing of it that I was able to see this doctor, and I would say within I think 6 to 8 months of treating me, he had to sell his practice and move. What a blessing that I was able to have this person. And so I started getting matched with the right people. Then I started coming back online. And then I started to have things come across me. Like I had different books cross my path. I had enough bandwidth to read books. I started learning more about burnout and what leads to that adrenal insufficiency and how that happens. And I found on Instagram, thank God, because then I had terminology to put to it and I couldn't get enough. I was like, this is clearly what I have and what I've gone through. Like, I need to understand what the fuck has happened, you know? And I found Leanne, who she had, just as I teach you guys, she had the right keywords in her bio, and she only had like 1,200 followers. I don't give a shit, and nor does anyone else when you need help. Fun fact. Okay. But I'm not I'm not business coaching you on this episode, but I'm just reminding you it doesn't matter. And this beautiful Canadian shared as vulnerably as I'm sharing with you right now her journey. And it was so similar. And she put words to how I'd been feeling and the madness and the symptoms. And so there, another person got put in my path. So I did her coaching and she had a intimate group program, which was lovely. And I still talk to two of the people in that group to this day. It was that beautiful of a container, and she only would take like 5 or 6 people in this container, and I understand why it needed to be that intimate because what we were going through and growing through was so vulnerable. And to be able to witness somebody and be able to see them on video where I could believe it of what it looked like on the other side of her being in a new operating system, which is exactly what was happening, or I was being forced to operate differently. And I ended up in a support group, when I told you I went to, end my life, and I ended up in this beautiful program for people who are survivors of highly dysfunctional and abusive families. I didn't even know this existed, and I've had a gazillion years of therapy at this point. I had no idea, which is wild to me that I didn't know, just because it was truly, I could have ridden my bike to this place from where my townhouse was. And I was going to, I would say they have meetings, right? It's like it's set up like a 12 step, right? It's like AA, but it's not AA. And I would go to these meetings. I think I went 6 days a week. I made this my number one priority to recover. For the first time in my life, I made Tiffany the number one priority, physically, mentally, spiritually. I had no choice but to give myself permission. And I didn't have guilt about it because I didn't have the energy to have the guilt, which is part of all the bullshit that happens in this timeline jump. You get to the white flag and you're like, I can't fucking go back where I was. And you don't have a fucking choice. And it was that true, like, unapologetic, like, this is how it has to be. It can't be any other way because I can't go back. So I took, remember, Project Me with Tiffany Carter, Business Coaching Academy podcast, none of this existed. And I took my agency that I still have today down by 90% income. I think there were 2 clients, and then I even took it down to having 1 client. And I had to respectfully pass off my clients. Some people I just released, but ones that were long-term, wonderful relationships, I certainly am never going to leave someone hanging, which was hard to do because I barely had the energy. And yeah, I was scared. I had just enough money to pay like my baseline expenses. And I had to let go of anyone who was working for me. Like I had no one working for me because I couldn't pay them. And if I wanted to pay them, I'd have to keep another client and I couldn't do it. So I brought in just enough to be able to pay. And thankfully, another blessing from the universe. I was in one of those fucked up mortgages that I think are illegal now, where like the true like collapse of the economy happened, where you're just paying like an interest only mortgage. But because of that, I didn't have like some exorbitant mortgage. I had a mortgage that I could cover, and I canceled my I canceled mag 11 years ago, you guys. And yes, 11 years ago, I still loved like all my fitness magazines. Hello, Exercise Addict. Like the supplements that would arrive, all of that got canceled. Everything. I went down to the bare bones. And on the outside, you'd be like, Bish you know, has a luxury car, luxury townhouse. Like, I mean, I don't, I probably still got my nails done, just not as often. On the outside, you just don't know what someone is going through. Not that people saw me very often, but I also had an enormous 75-pound bulldog, Molly, to take care of. And English bulldogs, like, they're not cheap to take care of. And I was never going to do anything that would sacrifice her health. With all that being said, things just started falling into place. I ended up meeting some of the most beautiful souls in my recovery programs, the various programs from the having my coach and the group coaching, and then from being an adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families and having that support in there. And I then started doing things like we had craft nights. And then once I started even feeling better, I hosted one and I created like a vision board night for all of us. And then I entered a women's group where it was all of us women in community and in healing and healing from years and years. I mean, decades for some of these women, all different ages, from people in their 20s to truly people in their 70s, all with the same shit. Just some people are able to hold on a long time for whatever reason, and some people, they're blessed where the shit hits them earlier in life. So they can have that timeline jump earlier. And I no longer felt alone. I felt the most connected and the most awake. I mean, it's laughable for those of you who like are in my Project Me Posse business coaching membership or in any of my other programs or coach with me who actually like know me. I literally went to embroidery classes. I did offline, true, beautiful creative activities. I got my creativity back. I didn't even think I was a creative person. I know you guys don't know that Tiffany because she wasn't online. My other business was built in the, so to speak, traditional way, like networking and the hard, the really hard way, not the online way I teach today. And all during this, mind you, I had the name Project Me with Tiffany Carter this whole time because I'd had it since I was 30 years old when I had spine surgery from being an exercise addict. Thank you. And I started getting those little signs back. Don't you want to do this? I started listening to a podcast. I've had her on the show before. And I love this lady's podcast because she would just walk and she'd be walking her kids to school. Another Canadian. Love my Canucks. I love my Canadians. And she'd be walking her kids to school. She was a doctor on top of it, which made me go, oh my God. She's a doctor and she's like walking and talking on her like corded headphones, and you could even hear wind sometimes. And she has a podcast with thousands and thousands of reviews, and I love listening to all of her episodes. And it's not like some formal big, overhaul production. And it started making me go, wait, I could do this. because I was in a spot where what I wanted to do, which is what I'm doing with you right now, on the show. God, I want to apologize for being like messy and crying, but also not. Also not, because I want you to see what's on the other side of all this shit you've been going through. Maybe you've forgotten. You might have gone through a timeline jump before, but it's easy to forget when you're really in the shit. Okay. I know because I've had, I've been going through another timeline jump that I'm just on the other side of, like I was saying earlier, and I forgot this year, about 11 years ago. It's easy to forget when you're being pummeled by life. And I'm crying out of the pure beauty of it. And it is this is part of our life journey. And we ask for these things. We ask for expansion. We ask for us to be able to, fulfill our dreams and have the money and have the time and have the freedom and feel the lightness in our bodies. And the universe and God, they hear us. You don't think they're hearing you because you're being put through all of this recalibration that feels like shit and feels scary and chaotic. But that is what is morphing you and pruning you and priming you and redirecting you and regrouping you to shoot way, way ahead. So I started to have things come into my focus that I could see where the old Tiffany couldn't see. The old Tiffany, all I saw were all the reasons why I couldn't have this podcast, why I couldn't have an online business. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no one knows who the hell you are. You aren't some like hot, hard-bodied, person. You're not some like Polly the influencer. You don't have some like super loaded husband and all the other bullshit. You don't know how to use technology. You're terrible at it. Like all the things. That's why I understand your whack ass minds because I thought all the same stuff. And where do I even start? I don't even know. And then the thought of starting sounded so overwhelming because I felt like I had to do so many things. And the more things I learned, the more I felt I had to do, and then it felt too heavy, and then I would freeze and not do it, and another fucking year would go by. And that's really what happens. And I know you're likely in that. That's also why I have my Project Me Posse business coaching membership, but also why I created Make More Work Less. If you want a next place to start from this episode where you're like, I need help where I'm at right now. I'm in between timelines. I'm in the timeline jump. I need I need some support, but it can't be something that's like heavy. It can't be something that's hours and hours of work and this insane commitment of energy because I don't have it right now. Do my Make More Work Less program. It's where money and manifestation work together. And it's designed to shift you in 7 days or less. You get lifetime access. You can take 7 months if you want, but it is down to 7 days or less. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who've taken it with exceptional, phenomenal results and testimonials. Some of them are on the sign up page for it at projectmewithtiffany.com/make more work less. I also put the link inside the show notes so you can swipe up. And if you're watching on Project Me TV on YouTube, it's in the description of the video. And I also have a highlight in my Instagram with tons of screenshots from people that have done it. I created that because I know that I would have been able to have done this program. Plus it comes with it's three main, video modules, and then there's my most insane guided. It's more than a meditation, it's an experience that goes with it. And then you have like a 67-page workbook, but it's designed to be fun and bring your creativity back and bring delight that inner child. So picture a children's activity book but for adults, where you can do all of this laying in bed and sitting your ass on the couch. Okay, it's all self-paced. That's where I'd go. It's on sale right now. So I would take advantage of that. And like I said, you have it for life, or you can also gift it to someone, which is a beautiful thing to do. So where was I going with all this before I went off on that tangent? I don't even know. I know that whatever's going to come out of my mouth is what's supposed to come out of my mouth. So I started having the thoughts again of, oh, wait, It's not that hard. I could figure this out. This seems pretty simple. I'm sure there's someone I could hire that could tell me what equipment I need and how to set it up for doing my podcast. And I've hired tech people before. Like, obviously, if this doctor who's just walking around in Canada and she's recording on her phone and I'm listening to it, like, it can't be that high of a production value that's required. And I'm here listening to the show, and so have other people. So you don't have to have this big fancy studio and this whole editing team, and it costs a fortune. Like, you don't need to have that. You can grow into that if you so desire. So I started bringing people started coming into my universe. People started coming into my vision that weren't there before to show me undeniable proof of what's possible, to where it was like beckoning me, see, you can do this. You can do this. And then I shared, and I do quite a bit of speaking. And I do it pro bono, and I also, charge for my speaking and trainings when I talk about like sales and business stuff. And I was doing this speaking event to a bunch of other women, and what came out of my mouth, I got the full body chills. And I said, "You are the most exceptional project of your life, not your projects at work, not cleaning out your closet, not organizing your kids' sports activities, not making sure your husband goes to all of the doctor's appointments. You're the most exceptional project of your life. And if you don't treat yourself as that, you will be very rudely reminded in deep pain that you need to be." And that's where Project Me was born. I already had that name, but I never realized that the ME was supposed to be an acronym for most exceptional. And I didn't have that whole line in there. And I went, that's why I've always had this name, Project Me. Wow. And it's like, that must be a sign. So all the dots start connecting. But what happens is people think they're supposed to connect rapidly. Like, okay, I'm on the other side of this. Like, where's my reward? Where's my cookie for all the bullshit I went through? I want to see this happen. I want the money pouring in. I want to meet my soulmate. I want the. That's ego. That's bullshit. It starts the dots. If they all came together at once, you would fucking short circuit. It would be too much to handle. It'd be too much to believe. And the resistance would come up like a brick wall because you need to have time to integrate. You need to have time to come into and explore this new territory, this new version of you. Think about how awkward kids are that go from, in puberty, like their voice cracks and like, there's you get, I don't know if they still do training bras, but like you have a training bra, like it's uncomfortable. You're kind of klutzy. You go through the awkward phase. That's exactly what happens when you're jumping timelines. And one dot just started connecting to the next dot to the next dot. And I still was like, what I became afraid of starting this was that I didn't want to end up back in burnout again. And I was afraid of that. But I couldn't end up back there because I'm a different person and I've set things up completely differently. But I knew if I really wanted to start my true dream business, my mission, my calling here, that my current business had to be reorganized and had to be set up completely differently. I couldn't just go back and taking on clients again and operating the same way. I literally couldn't. That identity was gone. It was impossible. It wasn't going to happen. And so I wasn't sure if there was a way to be able to make money, great money, while working less, because it was the opposite of what I was taught. It was the opposite of what I was programmed by society, by school, by corporate America, by my mom. Like it was, that you guys get it. I thought you had to just sacrifice everything and that's just how it was. And it's like, well, why can't it be a different way? The old identity of me would have never had that thought. The new identity of me, you start getting different thoughts. It's like you're thawing out. Why can't it be different? And why can't I create the way? When you ask yourself better questions, you get better answers. So I said, how can we set this up a different way where this actually feels good to me, where it doesn't feel depleting for me. And then I allowed myself to marinate in that. And after a couple of weeks, I had ideas and I was like, okay, I'm going to experiment. I don't know if this is going to work. I've never done this before. And I had no one to go to at that point. It wasn't like how there's the access that there is now. I did not have like I had an old school kind of a coach that was more of like an executive coach, not in the model of how we do things today, which is also what propelled me into showing up online is because I saw that there was a major space and a gap needed where you needed to be able to learn strategically how to do this, how to monetize your gift, skills, passions, and talents online, how to be able to make more money while doing less, how to create multiple streams of income, how to be able to do this, whether you're good at tech, whether you're 75, whether you're 25, whether you have degrees or you have no degrees, whether you're boring as hell and never go out or you're an extreme extrovert, regardless of any of that. And I knew that that became the obvious gap, which is what I came online to fill later on. But what had to be filled first was me experimenting with this new way of doing things because I didn't know it was going to work. And there is no way I was going to be able to come on a podcast or come online and try to teach people something that I didn't prove myself that it worked. Like I wouldn't be able to sell that. That would be fraud, which sadly there's a lot of people who do that. And so I revamped that entire business. I won't get into like what I did. If you guys are really interested in knowing what I did with that particular business, you can let me know. You can DM me on Instagram at Project Me with Tiffany. You can always reply to any of our emails that we send out to you and let me know that that'd be of interest to you. And in a short period of time, and I'm not talking 2 days, okay? I'm talking like I would say 3 months, I was making more money per month, meaning like per hour per month than I ever had in my life. So I wasn't yet back to where what my company was making, but I was the few hours I was working so little that what I was getting paid per hour was insane. It was like 10 hours a week, and I was bringing in $250,000 a year. Okay. Without any employees or anything because I wasn't yet there yet. I didn't know who I needed, what I needed to do, and I had to scale it back up I had to pace it because I wasn't going to go backwards. I was in it for the long haul. I was in it for multiple layers of reasons. And that company is an 8-figure business today, not because of the hustling and forcing and pushing. It would have never even got there. It's because of the pullback. It's because of me wanting to figure out how to work less and make more and reconfigure all of it and being truly forced into it. And then I was able to use that money I was bringing in from that company to then start Project Me with Tiffany Carter. And I was still scared to start it, but I felt more safe and supported to start it because I knew I wasn't going to end up back that sick again where I couldn't even function because I knew a different way and I had the excitement in me of knowing a different way. And I was like, I promised. I remember I sat on that in that cave of a townhouse of mine on that slate floor. And I promised God, I promised the universe, I said, if there is a way to be able to do this, to make a great amount of money that feels abundant, where you truly have options and you're free to travel the way you want and have a house and do the things that you want to do and be able to truly live your life and feel that sense of lightness and not feel like it's so miserable and self-sacrificing. If this really works, I promise I will teach it to millions of people because that's true wealth. I was bankrupt in every way before, but I had cash. True, true wealth. And so when you hear people say like, well, money doesn't buy happiness, and you can roll your eyes when you're not making money, okay? Because I've been there. But it depends how you're making your money. You know, if you're selling your soul, you're sacrificing your body, your well-being, your delight in life, it's fucking rough, man. It really, it really isn't worth it then. You know, it really isn't cute. Maybe for a short period of time. And look at how all of those things had to happen. And so, in that short period of time, if we were to actually look at like some things like numerically, I mean, I went from probably, when you really look at it, as an entrepreneur who's working 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, honey, like $14 an hour, okay? To me, getting 400, 500, if not more, sometimes $1,000 an hour. Like that exchange, that's a timeline jump. The jump from me feeling lonely and isolated and not having people who understood me to the point where I didn't want to be on this earth anymore, to literally just months later having the most incredible people in my life, people who I felt safe picking up the phone and reaching out to, whether I was in a great mood or I was struggling, people I could ask things to who just understood, had so much support, going from thinking I wasn't a creative person at all and I didn't have creativity, and let alone I didn't have time to do anything creative, to that being a daily thing in my life to be able to do. I could keep going on and on. And my body, the inflammation and the weight, in combination with, obviously I had to be put on like bioidentical hormones, supplements, gut thing, the cortisol thing, all of that, plus all this other stuff. I started coming back home and into my body. And what do you know? I didn't need to work out at the level I was working out at in order to feel good in my body. I couldn't believe it. There's a less is more approach to exercise too. Well, that was the opposite I was taught. And I got to experience that and really being able to love my body as someone who always was mad at my body my entire life. This is what's waiting for you on the other side. Your exact things will look different because you're in a different timeline. You have a different divine journey that's already planned out for you by a power greater than you. But if I didn't have all of that shit that happened, there is no way that I would have allowed myself to keep stepping forward into this new land with open arms, knowing I had to have, or there was, the door was locked and sealed shut to go back. You might not be as much in self will or as stubborn as me. I had to have that on full lockdown where there was no choice but to keep walking forward into this new world, this new identity. And the fact of what I've built today and helping millions and millions of people while making millions and millions of dollars. I'm talking to you right now wearing the sweatshirt I wore to bed last night. And knowing that this is more than enough and I don't have to necessarily be in some big fancy studio, or I can, that this is more than enough, that I can sit here and cry, I can sit here and make jokes, I can be talking to a guest, that I know that this is more than enough to attract the people and the abundance to have all the options that I want in life. This is the legit opposite of my old personality of several Tiffany's ago. So I really want you to ask yourself the question. I'm not going to give you a bunch of questions because I don't feel like you have it in you right now. Just ask yourself, what could all of this be teaching me? What could be the beautiful medicine in all this? Why is God, why is source, why is the universe doing this for me? Not why me and why is it happening to me? But how could this also be happening for me? Because really everything is happening for us, even though it feels like it's happening to us. It's happening for the greater good, to take you and to expand you to where you're meant to be on your divine path, your divine calling, for what you called in and what was already preordained and predestined for you. You've got this. You want additional support going through this. You want to accelerate through your timeline jump and not get stuck in it for years, okay, in resistance. Do the Make More Work Less program, projectmewithtiffany.com/make more work less. That will help bump you out of it in 7 days or less. Okay. And you can also take as long as you want, whatever feels good to you. But that will bump you out of it. It lowers your resistance. It lowers that fear, the fear receptors of where you're going, and it re-centers you, and it helps remove that like tug of war, which that is what is delaying the quantum leap. You're staying in the messy middle longer because of your ego fighting against it. And so that's designed to help you through that. Okay. So you know where to get that. You know where to find me. Wishing you great health, wealth, and worth as always. Love you so much. Please share this with someone who you know has been going through it, someone who would find this so helpful. Take a screenshot, share this episode on social media, and tag me at Project Me with Tiffany and pay it forward, because there's definitely someone who really needs to hear this strong dose of hope and validation today. Love you.